Free here and Free on the phone. And then we have Josh here and then Ryan for planning. So, Ryan, are you going to be walking us through the ordinance?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I think we can probably go ahead and get started. Start your recorder.
That's that.
I'd like to call this work session to order. This is a work session on AO number 2021-45, amending the zoning map and providing for the rezoning of dedicated municipal parks from R1. It is Friday, June 18th, is that correct? And we are noticed from 11 to 11:30 a.m. today. Let's go ahead and go around the room, starting with
You might know that it's this thing that you went towards.
Yeah, Savera.
Suzanne LaFrance, and on the phone,
John Weddleton.
Crystal Kennedy.
Forrest Dunbar.
and I believe we have someone from planning on the phone as well.
That's correct. This is Ryan Yell from the planning department.
Okay, is anyone else on the phone?
Yeah, this is Dave Woodfield with planning.
This is Michelle Machelski with planning.
Great, thanks. And in the back of the room,
Josh Duran, Director of Parks and Recreation. Steve Rayfield, Superintendent of Parks and Recreation.
and
Desiree Camacho, Assembly Budget Analyst.
Jennifer Sturck, Executive Admin Assistant.
great, and one member of the public.
You can call Haberman and represent myself.
Great, thank you. I believe that the planning department will be walking us through the ordinance, and just members, if you want to get in the queue, you can text me, or the two of you in the room, just wave your hand. It's been a while since we've had a meeting here in room 155, or those on the phone, just speak up. So I'll go ahead and hand it over now to the planning department.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, this is Ryan Yell with the Anchorage Planning Department. And as I said, thank you all for allowing us the opportunity to present this item and your consideration of it. This item was done in partnership with the Planning Department and Parks and Recreation Department. It's the fulfillment of action item 8-4 of the Anchorage 2040 Land Use Plan. And that action item reads as: conduct housekeeping and rezone of dedicated parks to PR district and some T-zone lands to PLI. And I will just note that the tail end of that action item, the rezone of T-zone lands to PLI, is going to be done for a separate land use analysis at a separate time. As you may recall, with new Title 21, we established a Parks and Recreation district that did not previously exist in old Title 21. And the purpose of the PR district is intended solely to include municipal lands dedicated by the Assembly as parks in accordance with Anchorage Municipal Code. And right now, there's a variety of zoning designations for our dedicated parks throughout the Anchorage Bowl. And this ordinance aims to rezone 18 of those dedicated parks to the appropriate Parks and Recreation district. And one example of how this will be beneficial is thinking about farmers markets. Farmers markets are a very common and desirable use to have within our community parks, and those are not allowed within any parcel that is zoned like an R1 or an R3, and they're also not allowed in your more rural designations for residential districts, whereas within the PRs, they are allowed. And conversely, with community gardens, we do, oddly enough, have a number of dedicated parks that have industrial designation, and community gardens are not allowed within those industrial designated parks. So by rezoning them to PR, those two uses would be allowed. This is the first phase of this parks rezone effort. There will be potentially one, if not two more phases to this, where we're going to wrap up the rest of all dedicated parks and get them properly zoned to PR. Following that in Anchorage 2040 to evaluate all undedicated or non-dedicated parks and to get those properly dedicated and protected. There is a map under Exhibit A of the attached ordinance that gives an overview of all the parks that are involved within this ordinance. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that the assembly may have on this item. And I just thank you for your time and consideration.
Great, thank you. Do members have any questions? Mr. Rivera?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a comment. So this work session was scheduled and organized while I was still the chair. And this is a fairly, as I understand it, sort of listening to this presentation and the other presentations that planning did at various community councils, this is a fairly simple ordinance that is in line with our various plans. As I understand it, this is going to be sort of one in a series, first in a series, I should say, of ordinances. So I figured it was probably good for us to just, on the record, have an explanation of why this is being brought forward to us and see if we had any questions. But yeah, otherwise, thanks to Planning and Parks and Rec for your work on this.
Thank you, Mr. Rivera. Ms. Zalato?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a question on section 2, the Campbell Park designation. Is that both the park and the newer parking lot to the north? Is that all included in this zone?
So through the chair, the section 2, the Campbell Park, that is the Tudor and Elmore area. I do not believe that includes the, if we're thinking about the same area, if that's the park off of Lake Elvis, if you're thinking of that parking area.
Yeah, so there's an improved park area there with the playground structure, and then to the north, there's the newer parking lot. Is that all encompassed in this Campbell Park designation?
Through the chair, I do not believe that this one covers that area. I think that park actually has a different name.
Mr. Rivera, did you want to address?
Yeah, so well, really just a question. So there's this Exhibit A, 2021-052. Is this meant to be sort of a map of all of the different parcels, section by section? And if so, it'd be great to have this sort of marked up so we can see this is section 1, section 2 of the ordinance.
Yeah, that would probably address the question, so I can see if it includes that particular portion of Campbell Park. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Rivera. Thank you, Ms. Zalatel. Are there any other comments or questions? Mr. Duran, do you want to add anything?
Yes, through the chair, this is Josh Duran. I think that your question regarding the visual and how it really doesn't tell you what's going on challenges me as well. And I know a lot about our parks. So I think we can do a better job there. And I think actually it might require multiple pages so you can actually see things about the relevance, potentially with some visual imagery background. So it just kind of ties it all together, street names, things of that nature. So I think we can take an effort to make that a little bit more, so it communicates better.
Great, thank you. Anyone else on the phone?
Madam Chair, this is Ryan Yellis at the Planning Department, and I'll just echo the comments that Director Duran shared there. Having better maps is something that was definitely pointed out to us as well by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And we did have some limitations in our capabilities at the time that we were preparing this ordinance. But we will certainly, when phase 2 comes before the Assembly and before Planning and Zoning Commission, we plan on having much better maps to demonstrate each section of the AO.
Great, thank you, Mr. Yella. Anyone else? Okay, given that we have 15 minutes left and we do have one member of the public here, we'll go ahead and open it up for public participation. Mr. Haberman, would you like to participate? You'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Eugene Carl Haberman. 43 years, Alaska resident, follow the public process. When the public process done appropriately, decision made by the governing body is more likely in public interest. This is the first meeting that I know of that you return to this assembly in City Hall. I remember those meetings over the years, meeting in this room. But I also know the importance of the assembly is to really respectfully connect with the people and their needs and have that conversation with the public. Having these meetings return to this room is a disappointment, and I'm sure you expect me to say something like that, because I plead with you to remain in the assembly chambers, where that is the place where the first mayor, George Sullivan, Municipality of Anchorage, had brought to the city with Project 80s, the LUSAC Library, and that's assembly chambers. And what we have now is a situation of returning to what we've done before and not learning from what the consequences of that is. Simple things of parking for people to attend respectfully is LUSAC Library is more accessible, and as far as being able to park. And the limitations in this room, and also look around, in some degree, there is a failure of being compliant with the American Disability Act. That's also a problem here. Yes, if you look at the rows of chairs and tightness and how many people the public can be here, and all the respect, years that I've attended meetings in this room, I remember those moments where there are a sizable number of members of the public that would be in this room, but could be, and it was very crowded, and it created a situation. Most important is the ability of a person to be heard. The sound scenario of recordings and video and all that is available at the LUSAC Library and has been available for many decades. Use those resources and don't go back to this situation. With all due respect, 47 seconds to spare.
Thank you, Mr. Haberman. Mr. Rivera?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Haberman, for the comment. So just a few things. First is I appreciate us being back in this room. This room feels a little bit like home. We've spent countless hours in this room doing a lot of work. You know, for the most part, this room works for us and it works for the public as well. I would say sort of returning back to normal is not what we are doing, right? We have increased access in this room with a live stream going on YouTube so folks can watch us. That doesn't have the same kind of sound barriers that a live stream at the LUSAC Library has. Talking about the LUSAC Library, that requires a lot of additional staff and budget resources to use the LUSAC Library. And in fact, the various departments who are in control of those staff and budget resources have said that they can't keep up with doing all of our work sessions and all of our meetings in the LUSAC Library, which is why we're using this room. And then I guess to close, I will say we're also going to be doing some upgrades that I'm looking forward to see what the clerk's office and the chair does in this room in terms of audio and video upgrades to really make it much more accessible for members of the public. So I think this room is going to be really well done once it gets finished, hopefully later this summer.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Rivera. I don't see anyone else in the queue. Thank you all for participating. Have a great weekend. This work session is adjourned.